of interest disclosures. Councillors, do we have any conflict of interest? Councillor Hewitt?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to disclose a conflict in relation to planning applications 2023/10 and 2023/12, given close proximity to my residents. Thank you.
And Councillor Hewitt, will you step out for discussion of planning matters when the item appears?
As did previously.
Thank you. Councillor Hewitt, any other conflict of interest disclosures? No. Officers? No, thank you. Item 4, leave of absence of councillor. Councillor Ebbels, as I noted, is currently on leave enjoying the sunny beaches of Italy. Item 4.1, Councillor Grout, leave of absence 29 May to 10 July 2023. So we have a recommendation before us that Council grant Councillor Grout a leave of absence from the date specified, 29 May to 10 July. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. I'm happy to second the motion, and all in favour
Would
of...
you like me to speak to the motion?
I don't think that'll be necessary. Thank you, Councillor Grout. But all in favour? Yep. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
So passed. Thank you. Item 5, public question time. 5.1, public question status update. At the ordinary meeting of council held on 29 of March 2023, one public question was taken on notice and the response was sent on the 20th of April 2023, and no additional public questions are outstanding. 5.2, public questions. So in accordance with the borough's public question time guidelines, all questions that have been received by 3 p.m. today will be read out. I'll also invite those who've made submissions or issued questions to come and read out their question if they wish. Otherwise, I'll read it on their behalf and council will provide a response. So we've received 15 public questions tonight in the prescribed timeframe, the first of which comes from Lorna Jane. Lorna, are you with us here this evening? No. Lorna's not here. I'll proceed to read out Lorna's question. And that is that council has advised the community of their plan to implement a 30-kilometre-an-hour speed limit on the roads of the borough in line with their active transport strategy. However, many people either knew nothing about this matter or only read about it afterthought in a small article in the RIP Rumour, April 2023, about the new highway speed limits. Where are these survey consultation papers? Who and how many participated in them? When were they carried out? Who did the council employ to carry out the surveys and consultations? And have the residents who will mostly be impacted by the trial been advised directly about the proposed trial, and what has their response been? I'll invite Stuart, our Manager for Infrastructure and Environment, to provide a response.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Community engagement is ongoing with the current exhibition period ending on the 1st of May 2023. Previous engagement activities included targeted engagement with the borough's schools, stakeholder workshops, including participation of the following organisations: Victoria Police, Regional Roads Victoria, Bellarine Community Health, Sea Roads Ferries. Online broad community engagement through the CrowdSpot platform between 23rd of January 2022 and 24th of February 2022, where there was 495 unique users. A community webinar held on the 3rd of February 2022, publication of the engagement outcomes and themes paper documenting the finding of the community engagement activities, and exhibition period that we're currently in closing 1 May 2023.
Thank you, Stuart. Lorna's not here, but usually we invite... Oh, pardon me. So sorry, Lorna. So sorry, Lorna. My apologies. My sincere apologies. Lorna Lawson, thank you for joining us today. Sure. Do you want to speak further to it, Stuart, or would you like me to respond?
Sorry, Laura, this is a lady. What instance you had a camera on the light flash? So thank you. We are recording this meeting, so it'll be available.
So the engagement taken to date, obviously you've mentioned the organisations, Victoria Police, Regional Roads Victoria, Ballarat Community Health, the Sea Road Ferries. Importantly, the borough's schools have also been engaged. The broader community, so engagement that was open to everyone, was undertaken on an online platform called CrowdSpot. That was advertised through the borough's website, the RIP publication, through several other of our regular channels, including mayor's columns, etc. Which would the community engaged with that platform. We had 495 unique users. So that's 495 people got on there and indicated their issues that they had relating to active transport and safe movement around the borough. There was a community webinar held. People were invited. That was advertised through all of those channels mentioned before. There was a publication created called the Engagement Outcomes and Themes paper. That was published on our website. I believe it's still there. We publicised the posting of that document through all those channels again. And finally, we're in the middle of an engagement process now. We're a public exhibition where submissions are invited, and that closes on 1 May 2023.
If I may also add, the demand or the request for an active transport strategy to be created is part of the council vision. And that vision was an exercise that was created in consultation with community. But I want to be really clear and note that this is still about consultation, and we want to hear from everyone in here. If you haven't made a submission yet, we encourage you to. So if this isn't an idea that people like, that's totally fine. That's part of the consultation. And we do want to make sure that the final document that comes to council for adoption is a reflection of the things that people in this community want. And certainly, yeah, are not shying away from hearing about what you don't like, as much as happy to hear what you do like within that strategy. Lorna, has that clarified the question some? Oh, sorry. We do have a process for questions. Thank you. I think council, I certainly as the mayor, but as a representative of council, take on that feedback about communication. And I think this is part of the feedback we're happy to receive as well. So I agree, and all council comms must be accessible to all people in our community, whether they're traditionally online users, whether they do or don't have social media accounts. So I think it would be appropriate for council to have a continued conversation about how we keep doing that. And I would really appreciate your input and the input of others as to how we can improve that communication. Thank you for that feedback. Question number 2 comes from Wendy Dunn. Wendy, are you here tonight? No, I'll read Wendy's question out. So what public consultation has occurred in regard to 30-kilometre speed limit? I'll invite Stu to respond again, noting there are similar elements to Lorna's question.
Yeah, happy to respond again. The response is the same. That we've the community engagement's ongoing through this current exhibition period. which closes on the 1st of May 2023. And our previous engagement has been targeting schools and stakeholder workshops with Victoria Police, Regional Roads Victoria, Bellarine Community Health, Sea Road Ferries, and online broad community engagement through the CrowdSpot platform, a community webinar held on the 3rd of February 2022, publication of engagement outcomes and themes paper, and the exhibition closing on 1st of May.
Thank you. And I'd also add, and it's pertinent to Lorna's question as well, is that the ideas that are in the draft active transport strategy were ideas that came from the consultation, both things that were raised on the CrowdSpot platform, but also that were tabled in stakeholder workshops. So with some of the parties that Stuart's listed there and more. So what we put into the strategy was about retesting with community ideas that were presented by community. That doesn't mean it's a job done ever. As I said, the consultation process is very much ongoing. And if people aren't satisfied with them, if they take issue with them, if there's concerns, that's perfectly fine. But what we're doing in the process is trying to retest ideas we've heard through the consultation process. And I should offer, I didn't, unfortunately, but I'd be happy to chat with individuals or with groups outside this forum. Unfortunately, if you haven't lodged a public question within the time frame, we can't have a two-way dialogue, but I'm very happy to speak with people as a group or as an individual about your ongoing concerns to ensure that you feel that the conversation is continuing. I'll just double check that Wendy isn't in the room should she want a clarifying question. So I'll move to question 3 from Stephen Coulter. Preamble. I have reviewed the council's 30-kilometre-hour proposal and understand it to be applicable to residential streets and areas of higher pedestrian active transport strategy, for example, schools and shopping strips. I understand it will not apply to main roads such as the Bellarine Highway, including parts of Flinders Street and King Street, Fellows Road, Ocean Road, Point Lonsdale Road, Lawrence Road and Kirk Road. I understand the borough has around 43 kilometres of roads and streets. I understand the main roads cover 12 kilometres of the 43 kilometres. The main roads are where more than 80% of traffic occurs. The attached Google map, which I'm not able to show as part of reading the question, my apologies, but shows blue roads I understand to be main roads. It can also be accessed at this link, and there is a link provided. Finally, I understand that the initial trial will only be in part of Old Lonsdale and Murray Road. So the question is, can you confirm my understanding that the 30-kilometre-per-hour proposal does not affect the main roads of the borough and will therefore have no impact on travel between Queenscliff and Point Lonsdale, nor other Bellarine townships, as they are all on main road routes? The response will also come from Stu on this occasion, our Manager for Infrastructure and Environment.
Thank you. The proposed strategy 5.1 within the active transport strategy document, page 48, states initial local streets within the area bounded by Kirk Road, Ocean Road, Fellows Road and Point Lonsdale Road, as well as Murray Road, could be suitable locations for trials. Following these trials, the program should be evaluated and further areas investigated if practical. It is not the intent of the proposed strategy to include the arterial network, which is managed by the Department of Transport.
That's right. I don't think Stephen is with us, so I don't think there'll be an opportunity for a clarifying question, but thank you, Stu, for the response. Question 4 comes from Lionel Waddell. Are you here, Lionel?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Lionel. Would you like to read your question? Are you comfortable standing up and using the microphone so we can all hear?
Councillors, has the council taking notice of what the residents and ratepayers are saying about the QATS in relation to the reduction in speed limits in Lonsdale and Queenscliff? And is the council prepared to remove these reductions from the strategy?
Thank you, Lionel. I'll answer on behalf of Council, and that's to note that we've definitely heard the concerns around this particular part of the draft active transport strategy, and we absolutely are listening to continued concern or praise of parts of the strategy. We encourage ongoing feedback for all parts, as I said, whether it's positive or negative, and continue to accept submissions until the May 1 consultation process has concluded. But at that point, we'll consider all the feedback we've heard, including a submission from yourself and the messaging we're hearing here tonight. So I should add that the messages we're hearing both through the formal submission process, but also that councillors are encountering through listening posts or in the meeting are absolutely forming part of our considerations on how this draft strategy is being received by community. Question number 5 comes from Bernadette Byrne. Bernadette, are you here with us? No, I'll read your question. Can you please confirm the statement attributed to council has been correctly reported to the Herald Sun on the 13th of April 2023? A coastal municipality could be made a 30-kilometre-per-hour speed zone in a plan outraging residents, but which council says will encourage the nervous, including women, to use roads. If this was correctly reported, who provided this statement on behalf of council? And can they provide an explanation of their statement, particularly referring to the nervous, including women, to use roads? So the short answer to this is no, this is not correctly reported. The term the nervous was not and has not or is not going to be part of any statement provided to any media outlet, including the Herald Sun. And the line in question that was quoted in Bernadette's question is actually the subheading of the Herald Sun article. And just to clarify that is not a quote from council. When referring to council's quote later in the article, which refers to speed reduction, encouraging those who are traditionally nervous about using roads, such as women, children, and people with disabilities, council refers to the data in the draft active transport strategy, which talks about women in the context of them being underrepresented active transport users. So that is that they're less likely to cycle within a shared road network environment in comparison to the average cyclist, which are males aged 45 and under. As the mayor and principal spokesperson for council, I worked with officers to provide a quote, but it was not the nervous. The data about women, children, and people with disabilities being reluctant to use shared roadways comes from the Department of Transport's Victoria Cycling Strategy 2018 to 2028. I apologise if this has caused confusion or offence, but the intention is to ensure that our roads and that the active transport is something that's accessible for everyone in our community. Public question number 6 comes from James Rush. James, are you here? No. On page 49 of your active transport strategy report, you identified the likelihood of death occurring based on the speed a car going when colliding with a pedestrian. What is the source to support this statement? Also, how many deaths have occurred in the borough where the speed over 60 kilometres an hour was a contributing factor? I'll call on Stuart, our Manager for Infrastructure and Environment, to respond.
The Transport Accident Commission reports that in the last 5 years there have been 175 pedestrian deaths in Victoria. Over 70% of those deaths have occurred on roads where the speed limit was over 60 kilometres per hour or higher. The TAC includes the following statement on its website. If you're hit by a vehicle travelling above 30 kilometres an hour, the risk of death or injury rises rapidly. TAC statistics going back to 1987 indicate that there have been 7 road deaths in the borough of Queenscliff. These statistics include a death of a cyclist. Between 2015 and 2021, there were 21 traffic accidents in the borough. 4 involved pedestrians, 4 involved bicycles, 13 involved vehicles only, including motorcycles. Further detail about the traffic accidents involved pedestrians indicate 3 crashes were recorded on 50-kilometre-hour roads and were classified as serious, and 1 crash was recorded on a 40-kilometre-hour and was classified as other. Within the borough. So those last statistics were from between 2015 and 2021.
Thank you, Stuart. I don't think James is again here to ask a clarifying question, so I'll move to question number 7 from Raylene McDonald. Raylene, do you wish to read your question out?
So my question specific to the active transport strategy draft and the actual data or hard evidence the council has relating to specific car and pedestrian incidents in our area, so Point Lonsdale, Queenscliff, as a reason for reducing the speed limit to 30 kilometres per hour, and not just as a result of a generic statement relating to survival rates of accidents or being the first municipality to have a 30-kilometre speed limit. And could this please be provided in a public statement, not just online, but somewhere physical where obviously people here who would have liked to partake in the study relating to this draft have been unable to do because everything was online.
Thank you, Raylene. I'll invite the CEO, Martin Gill, to respond.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Raylene. And the data that Stuart's presented in the previous question will be the data that we present to the public. Can't you hear me? Sorry. Got a soft voice since the operation. Yeah, so Raylene, we will gather the data that we've already researched and Stuart's presented tonight. I hear you want it on and as a hard copy, and we'll provide that at the borough offices so people can come and pick it up. We'll also put it on our website as well.
We'll take that on notice, but thank you for the feedback. Raylene, I'd also like to add that you're right. There are not a lot of traffic fatalities in the borough, but the strategy is less about, or the proposal in the draft document is more about providing suggestions as to how we might encourage more people to use active transport, so to take up cycling or to take up walking and wheeling. So it's not necessarily responding to fatalities. And I just want to acknowledge that you're correct. Yep. Absolutely, we do. The demography of our community is definitely a consideration in everything that we do. I'll move on to question. You may have a follow-up, pardon me.
Yes. Yeah. Raylene, I'm assuming it's a statement rather than a question. Yeah. That's all right.
Question number 8 is from Helen Wilson. Helen, are you here tonight? You're happy for me to read it? Do you want to come down?
This is on behalf of my mother, who's 91 years of age. She's very with it. And so her question was, oh, do I have to read the little bit beforehand? No.
Sorry, what was the,
Do I have to read the little bit beforehand? No,
you
just
don't
the
have to read the
question.
preamble, just
Okay,
the question's fine.
So her question was, what happens to my family and friends who rush over, go over the 30 kilometres per hour to my aid in case of an emergency, be it minor or something even more serious? Or what about, obviously with an ambulance, do they have to drive on the 30 kilometres per hour? Now, the reason why she asked this, she was really sick in June and I had to take her straight down to the Ballerine Community Health. And they just said straight into the hospital. And we couldn't even wait for an ambulance. We had to get her there. She would have died. And she said, if I had to go in a snail's pace, that was her words exactly. If she went as a snail's pace, crawling along the road to get to the hospital, even just to get out of Point Lonsdale, she's only just in Go Lightly Street. So she'd have to sit on the road, going really slowly. She could have died. Basically, that was it. We had to get all the family in. She was going to die that night. But we got her into the hospital straight away. And the doctor said she's a miracle that she's even here. So her question is that what would happen in that situation? You know, it was like late at night, no one's on the road, 30 kilometres an hour. It's just not common sense. And her question is, what would happen to her family?
Thank you for reading the question and to your mum for putting it to us. I will invite Stuart to respond, but I'll say broadly that no strategy or policy from council would ever be rolled out that would undermine the delivery of critical services like emergency services. So that is always a consideration of the things we do and particularly this draft proposal, but Stuart has some more specific information on this to answer the question for your mum.
Thank you, Mayor Tolhurst. If a 30-kilometre-hour speed limit was implemented as part of any future decision of council, drivers would be required to observe the posted speed limit. Enforcement of the speed limits would continue to be the responsibility of Victoria Police. Emergency services would be required to drive in a manner that is consistent with their organisation's standard protocols for attending emergencies.
Sorry, sorry, I didn't catch your name. So sorry. To the woman who asked the question, is there anything you'd like to clarify or a follow-up question you'd like to ask? As a citizen driving, not an emergency vehicle, I understand. Thank you for the extra information. Oh. Public question number 9 comes from Mandy Gabak. Mandy, are you here? Oh, you're Mandy. Hi, Mandy. Oh, we've got another question here from you. Yeah, coming up. Sorry, I should have let you stay there.
I had a few questions, but obviously time is short. My main question was, how much did the council pay for the ratio consultants to prepare this paper? Did you just want to beat your chest and say to the world, look at me, as in the council? I just want to be interested to know how much it was we paid for that paper to be produced.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm happy to answer this question in full. So the consultant fees for the project and the project, which includes the incorporation of all the feedback that we're in the process of collating, is $32,934, inclusive of GST. Thank you. Thank you. Councillors do need an opportunity to respond without interruption, please. So I'm happy to also answer the second part about chest beating and just, I think, make the point that the draft strategy was developed in line with the council's vision for an active transport strategy and has continued to involve the community. But as I said, if people don't like the strategies in it, if people are opposed to them, I just keep reiterating that point that we really want to hear from you. This is what good policy is about. It's what good strategies are about. So I am grateful again for you all being here, for asking your questions and for making submissions. I'll move to public question number 10 from Stuart Williams. Stuart? No. So Stuart's question is, I note that council intends to create a new position for an executive level administration officer, key project management and council governance support. I also note that the proposed remuneration for this role is $126,000. Why is the remuneration so high? The salary for similar APS, VPS and local government roles is around $75,000 to $85,000. And I'll invite the CEO to respond.
Thank you for your question, Stuart. Certainly the draft budget includes an allocation of funds for a potential new position. In allocating the budget amount for the role, council has allocated the full cost to council of the proposed position. So what we mean by full cost is, in addition to the salary cost, it includes on costs such as superannuation, work care premium, leave loading and long service leave accrual. The remuneration itself would be a lot less than 126,000, be based on the provisions within the employment bargaining agreement of council.
Thank you.
Sorry? No, sorry, we might have to.
So just like the active transport strategy, this is a proposal in the draft budget, which is also going to go to consultation and to community for input. And just like this, we invite people to make submissions and highlight things that either they're not satisfied with or add things that they wish to see council's budget be allocated to. So that is actually in tonight's agenda as well, to get the budget out for consultation, and we encourage you to make a submission there too. But just to make the point that it's a proposal still and nothing has been confirmed yet. Question number 11 comes from John Begg. John, are you here? Hi, John. Sure. What is the current cost incurred by the Borough of Queenscliff to create and proceed with the draft 30km/h plan proposal, and how much were external consultants paid to the date to build the draft to this stage? Who instigated the 30km idea? Borough of Queenscliff CEO, senior staff members, councillors, or invested minority interest community groups? And I'll invite Stuart to respond to this, noting we've talked to the cost, but can reiterate that and seek any clarifying questions you might have.
Thank you. Ratio consultants were engaged to develop the active transport strategy at a cost of 32,934 inclusive of GST. And the community engagement that's been undertaken is basically the same as what we've discussed in previous questions. Would you like me to run through those again?
John, yeah, are you satisfied? There's some parts that have been answered, but I'd like to invite you if you'd like a follow-up or I guess to add on to the question, given it's been answered previously. Is there anything you're seeking clarification on? If it's, we've just had a few questions, John.
If it's 32,000 with the staff, the councillors and everyone else, the cost of this so far is over 100 grand.
Of this,
Thank you very much.
correct, thank you. John, I'll take the question about the land on notice because I'd like some clarification from you on exactly which pocket of land you're talking about, but happy to provide a response to it. And certainly I take the feedback, as I've said, around not just the draft active transport, but on communication and consultation as well. I think we're hearing a lot about that tonight and it's really good. And it will ultimately strengthen the process going forward.
How many years ago? 20 or 30 years ago.
Oh, I think that land is in City of Greater Geelong. All right. Sorry, John, I do need to move on to the next question.
Why did you make 2-metre signs next to the steel posted signs on the road so that people can actually physically see it behind them? The UK does it and it works pretty well.
I'll take that on notice as well as a suggestion. Oh, Stuart's suggesting.
That's a recommendation of the active transport strategy.
All right.
Clarification on this engagement of ratio. Was there actually a public tender to appoint them?
I'll
And
put
so
that to the
yes,
CEO.
how were they engaged and actually how was that ratio was engaged to win the contract?
So council uses its procurement policy that's adopted by council to make all appointments. It was, the process was, the brief was prepared and sent to Ratio and who were working on a audit of all the roads and the pathways in the borough. They provided a response and it fit within the procurement policy and decision was made. No,
So actually no other, the company actually got a chance to tender for any work.
there wasn't a tender process, councillor Grigor.
So no, strange that no other company had the opportunity.
There were savings to be made for council by using this process.
I'd like to move to question 12 from public question, Simon McDonald. Simon, would you like to come and read your question out?
Thanks for everyone coming tonight. First council meeting for me. Hopefully not the last. Okay, my question, like given the strong opposition to the speed limits, let's call it overwhelming opposition. I think the surveys or the voting's over 2,000 opposing it, 2,000 votes. Given that, my question is, will the borough's climate emergency response plan recommended, given if this doesn't go ahead, will they recommend other measures to reduce speed? Because we don't want to all come back here again and spend more money unnecessarily. Things that I heard may be coming up are things like narrowing of residential roads, the use of bollards, unnecessary speed humps, or any measures commonly referred to as neighbourhood greenways. If so, if you are going to bring any of these things, will you provide a public map of where they are and what their implication would be? Because I would just remind the council of what happened in Alexander Crescent, where they tried to block off the road there. We had all sorts of responses from CFA, police, emergency services, and it was quite a debacle. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I'll invite Stuart back up to make a response to that question.
The active transport strategy notes reduced speed limits can be used in conjunction with road calming methods to slow vehicles and reduce the risk of pedestrian fatalities. The draft strategy does not identify specific local area treatments or potential locations to support the proposed speed reduction. In the event that the proposed approach of the 30-kilometre-hour speed reduction is adopted, design investigation would commence and a community engagement program would be developed specifically regarding the proposed initiative. A number of treatments to support safe active transport in general are recommended through the active transport strategy, ranging from raised pedestrian crossings to line marking initiatives.
Thanks, Stuart. Simon, would you like to follow up?
Sure, Simon, at the moment, this is all a premise. So there's been no decision to implement the 30-kilometre road. So we could spend some time going through the details of potential, but I think at this point in time, the bigger question for council is how it reviews the opposition to the 30-kilometre-an-hour. And then we'll come back to you at that point and start talking to you about what infrastructure we might use. Yeah. Yes, that's what we're hearing from the community. Yes.
All right. Thank you. I'll move to question number 13, which is from David Connolly. David, I saw you here. Would you like to read your question out? Thank you. We can move for an amendment to the minutes to be made to acknowledge that question, the receipt of that question. And as I understand it, the CEO has indicated a response will be provided in writing after this meeting.
Yeah, so there's been a transition from the acting CEO back to myself, and we're still going through that transition. We certainly will answer your question. We've received other questions from, I think, PLCA and Michelle Jepson around the similar issue. So we'll get all that together and provide that information to you.
Thank you, David. In relation to potential conflicts of interest, can council advise what the protocols and procedures are in relation to personal contractual matters? Did you mean, sorry, may I ask a clarifying question around personnel, David, about staffing? Yep. Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to clarify. It is believed officers or councillors subject to any such discussions needed to leave the meeting and that this is noted in the minutes. I'll let the CEO respond to this one.
Thank you for your question, David. Certainly conflicts of interest are something that we take very seriously. Conflict of interest laws are prescribed in the Local Government Act and are designed on principles-based approach rather than rather than describing every type of conflict of interest. The Act requires that councillors and council officers must disclose if they have a conflict of interest in a matter and exclude themselves from the decision-making process. And the important part there is the decision-making process in relation to that matter. While the councillor or council officer may seek advice and guidance as to whether they have a conflict of interest, it's ultimately the responsibility of the individual to accurately identify their interests and disclose any conflicts of interest. In line with that principles-based approach prescribed in the Act, council does not prescribe procedures for dealing with conflicts of interest. It's up to each councillor and officer to ensure that they comply with the Act. When conflicts of interest are disclosed in a council meeting, the relevant councillor or officer should leave the chamber, and both the conflict and departure re-entry times should be noted in the relevant minutes.
Any follow-up? Thank you, Martin. That's up to public question 14 from the QCA. David, you happy for me to read that out? In the latest audit committee minutes, the CEO referenced 2 PINs, provisional improvement notices, were applicable to Victoria Park. 1 PIN was released after repeated calls to have it publicly disclosed before, during and post the time period the visible destruction of Victoria Park was taking place. Can the CEO tonight detail what the 2nd PIN referenced at the audit committee entailed and why it was not released as a matter for the public record in order for the community to fully understand the council failings with Victoria Park tree management and the resultant devastating consequences to the heritage protected Botanic Garden and public park that contain the last remaining significant vestiges of highly valued pre-white settlement Moona trees? I'll ask the CEO to respond. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your question, David. The 2nd WorkSafe provisional improvement notice required council to develop a safe system of work for managing the condition and rectification of works of trees within the recreational reserve and Victoria Park, which included identifying and fixing visual number identifiers to each tree and identifying and implementing a formal regime to monitor tree health for decline and structure, including root plate for failure indicators, and to do this regularly. And finally, establishing a tree management register to record conditions and details on rectification works completed. WorkSafe wanted to see improvements to the system, yes.
And Martin, perhaps for David's benefit and the QCA's information, can you detail why we couldn't share that WorkSafe PIN?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, it's not practice for when WorkSafe pins to be public notice because they're commercial in confidence, or rather they're a requirement of the council to respond to it. We're happy to share exactly what the pin says, but the pin includes information that's not relevant.
Thank you. Okay, public question number 15 for the Point Lonsdale Civic Association. David, are you happy for me to read it out? Thank you. Regarding Borough of Queenscliff, ordinary meeting 29th of the 4th, 2015, P55, sale of Murray Road land. Given recent statements by the acting CEO, the association is confused about what uses the 3.5 million Murray Road sale monies can be invested in. In particular, the reference to investing in projects to reduce operating expenses. Question 1, does the original motion and subsequent council resolution still stand, given the statement made by the acting CEO and the last ordinary meeting, 29th of the 3rd, 2023, page 20, at which he indicated, in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, the council policy CP 044, sale, exchange or transfer of council land, proceeds from the sale will be assigned in accordance with the relevant key budget principles as included in council's financial plan and adopted budget. Proceeds from the sale will be directed to either investing in projects to generate additional revenue streams or investing in projects to reduce operating expenses. 2, will the council re-establish the Governance and Finance Committee to review the use of proceeds of land sales so that ratepayers get the best possible result from the land sale funds? And I'll invite the CEO to respond.
Thank you for your question, David. I'm not sure I actually understand the first part of the question, so I'll attempt to understand it. And all I'll really say is the policy for land sales includes the following guidance. So use of proceeds from the sale of land, unless otherwise directed by council, sale proceeds from land shall be assigned in accordance with the relevant key budget principles as included in the council financial plan and adopted budget. That is, any future proceeds from asset sales are directed to either retiring debt or investing in projects to generate additional revenue streams, or investing in projects to reduce operating expenses, invest to save projects. So we can have a chat offline about what the question is and which original motion you're referring to, but at the moment, sorry, I'm a bit confused by the question. And we'll take a second question on notice.
Thank you, Martin. That brings us to the end of public question time. Thank you, Lorna. I do need to bring the public question time to a close now. Thank you for standing up and asking, and we're happy to take questions outside this forum. So as I said, this is not the end of the road. The doors aren't closed here. Councillors are very happy to receive communication in any form and to have regular contact and communication about issues of concern. So I'll move now to item 6. My apologies. What was your name? Stephanie, I don't have the record of your question, but given that you received a response indicating its receipt and before 3 p.m, I'll allow you to read it out to us tonight.
I'm happy to take that. We certainly. Thank you for the question. And certainly advocacy on increasing bus services is an ongoing project of council. We've made submissions to the Regional Integrated Strategic Transport Strategy about such matters as this, and including, making sure that the buses that come from the borough actually go more directly to Geelong to improve access for people. So yes, it is something we continue to advocate on, and something that we will continue to advocate on.
Thank you. So may I just respond to Stephanie's question? Sorry. Thank you for the question. Again, my apologies. It wasn't admitted in that formal process. I would just reiterate that no single policy or strategy is a silver bullet or a complete solution. So we are always advocating to increase bus services, and appreciate you bringing that matter an item for consideration tonight. Thank you. I am going to have to move to item 6 now of the council agenda, which is confirmation of council minutes. So item 6.1, minutes ordinary council meeting 29th of March 2023. Yeah, that's fair. Yep. If people wish to leave now, you're most welcome to. Thank you all for joining. For those still in the gallery, if you want to reshuffle and come up closer so you can hear better, feel free to make that move as well. Thank you to those who are still with us. I'll jump back into item 6.1, which is the minutes of last ordinary meeting of council. And the recommendation before us is that the minutes distributed are confirmed as an accurate record. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Anyone to second the motion? Councillor Grout, all in favour? The motion is passed. Item 6. Thank you, Jackie. So I'll move that the council minutes be recorded as a correct record, with the addition of noting David Connolly's, was it through the QCA, David, or the QCA's question from the meeting on March 29, 2023 regarding the sale of Murray Road land? Do I have, I'll being the mover, is there a seconder for that amended or alternate motion? Thank you, Councillor Hewitt, and all in favour? Thank you. We'll now move to item 6.2, the confidential minutes of last month's ordinary meeting of council. So the recommendation again is that we adopt the record as provided as an accurate record of that meeting. Councillor Hewitt, thank you for moving. Councillor Grout, thank you for seconding. All in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.3, Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes from the 17th of April 2023. So again, we have a recommendation that the minutes as distributed be confirmed as an accurate record. Councillor Grout, thank you for moving as also a member of our Audit and Risk Committee. I'm Councillor Hewitt, and as another member, thank you for seconding. All in favour? Motion's passed. Thank you. Item 7, record of informal meetings of councillors. So the recommendation here is that the record of informal meetings presented at adjunct to item 7 be noted. I'm happy to move that. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Hewitt. All in favour? Thank you, council. That's moved. Pardon me, it's carried. Item 8, notice of motion. 8.1, notice of motion status update. The recommendation that the notice of motion status update presented in an adjunct to item 1 be noted. Actually, before it's moved, I wish to move a motion that seeks a correction in that that note that accompanies this record. And that is to say that there's an item written in error. So the motion is to adopt the notice of motion status update with the following change. Currently, the item says officers met with the acting CEO and mayor to gain a better understanding of this request, and the mayor was not part of that meeting. So the item should say officers met with the acting CEO to gain a better understanding of this request. Do I have a seconder for that amended note? Thank you, councillor Hewitt. All in favour? Item 8.2, motion on notice. No notices of motion were received. Item 9, petitions and joint letters. 9.1, petitions and joint letters. And in accordance with the Borough of Queenscliff governance rules, a petition or joint letter presented to council must lay on the table until the next ordinary meeting of the council, and no motion other than to receive the petition or joint letter may be accepted by the chairperson unless the council agrees to deal with it earlier. So 9.1.1 is the petition that opposes the 30km/h active transport strategy. On the 19th of April 2023, council received a petition initiated on change.org in relation to the proposed speed limit reductions within the draft active transport strategy. The draft active transport strategy was endorsed by council at the ordinary meeting of council on the 22nd of February and placed on public exhibition until 1 May 2023. And consistent with Division 9 of the governance rules, the petition now lays on the table for council's information. We have a recommendation before us that Council A note the petition received with a total of 1,730 signatures at the time of receipt. I understand that's increased since. Regarding the proposed speed limit reductions within the draft active transport strategy. B notes the petition was received in response to public exhibition phase of the draft active transport strategy and included as a submission to that process. And C notes the concerns regarding the proposed speed limit reductions. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Gratt, someone to second the motion? Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Councillor Gratt, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, sorry, I think the petition here is very clear about what a very large number of people in our community and outside of the community think of this proposal. And it's very appropriate that this be part of the submissions. And I think the amplification of the petition by the number of people that attended tonight shows the strength of feeling about this particular issue. And definitely this is something that we will consider. And we have to consider it in line with our governance rules and how we process petitions. So where we don't make decisions on this tonight, this lays on the table. And I think, Mayor, we might be inviting petitioners to meet with us at some point if they wish to. Is that something that we can suggest as part of this motion?
Absolutely. We can put forward an amended motion or an alternate motion in which if it is something Raylene and other representatives of the petition would like, we can add into this recommendation that we put to the vote, an invitation to you and some representatives to meet with council to further talk about the matters raised in the petition or any other concerns around the consultation process.
Can I therefore just add an amendment in as point D, which is the council invites petitioners into a meeting with councillors. No, you're right.
I will happily put an amended motion forward then. And that is the recommendation in its current form with the additional item D that council organised to meet with Raylene McDonald and other representatives of the opposed the 30K and the borough petition. So I've moved that. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, councillor Hewitt.
And then as the mover of the motion, I can accept that amendment to the motion, to my motion. Thank you very much.
As the mover of the
Sorry about
motion,
that. Don't do this very often.
I'd just like to also speak to that amended motion and note that thank you for putting it together. As I said, this draft process is about hearing from people who oppose the strategies within the draft strategy. It's about hearing from people who like it, but it's ultimately about making it stronger and making it reflective of the will of our community. I also think, as I've mentioned previously to the gallery when people were here for question time, that it would be appropriate for council to consider strengthening its community consultation and its communication and examining how to do that in a way that reflects our demographic, that provides everyone an opportunity to contribute in varied ways and the ways that suit them. We know not everyone's online, not everyone is on Facebook, but also people are on those important channels and platforms. So I hope that if you accept the offer to meet with us, Raylene, we could discuss that as well. And certainly I hope it's something councillors will continue to discuss outside this meeting. Councillor Hewitt, as the seconder of the motion, do you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that I'm very supportive of the need to continue to listen to what people have said, making time online, making time tonight, making time as part of their submissions. We've received an overwhelming number of submissions to date. We haven't received them all ourselves as councillors, but we're definitely hearing what people are saying. And I'm really supportive of meeting with Raylene and the other representatives from the petition group because we want to continue to listen. So thank you, and I'm very supportive of that addition. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. I'm
Thank
saying I'd like to thank the community actually to speak on the workings of the council, but it really shouldn't take a petition to actually get to be heard. And we really need to be out there. We'll be out there out in the streets and actually to listen to people. And face to face, we know that, and we'll be working on that better.
You need a public, you don't need a meeting. You need a public meeting for all the residents of the borough.
Thank you. We'll take all the suggestions that have been generated here on notice, but also, as I said, make this part of an ongoing discussion that considers a range of ways to better engage with our community. If there are no further comments on the amended motion to the submission of the petition, I will put it to the vote. So all in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. I can see your hand, John. I'm unable to take a question or comment at this time. But happy to chat offline or to take a question via email or through a mechanism that suits you. So my apologies, we've passed our public question period. That brings us to, if people would wish to stay, again, you're encouraged to do so. But if you also wish to leave because you were here for the petition, you're invited to do so now. But otherwise, please enjoy the rest of the meeting. Right? Thank you. That brings us to item 10, the functions attended. So we have a long list of functions attended by councillors in the past month, and the recommendation is that the functions attended report be received. Do I have a mover? Thank you, councillor Hewitt. A seconder for the recommendation. Thank you, councillor Grout. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11, Chief Executive Officer. 11.1, Chief Executive Officer Report, April 2023. And at this point, I'll hand over to Martin to talk to the CEO report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take the report as read, but there's a couple of notes that I do want to draw attention to. And first of all, to thank Kelvin Spiller, who did a fantastic job in the acting role and left the organisation in a good place. But I want to spend just a minute just to thank Shannon Maloney, the Manager of Community, who first of all, to congratulate her on receiving the offer of a role at another council, but also to thank you and acknowledge the work that you've done for the borough over 11 years, which is a quite remarkable stint. We appreciate everything, the care and the passion you've brought to your role. But it's good to know that you're still in the sector. So thank you, Shannon. Otherwise, council is happy to take any questions you might have. Yep.
Thank you, Martin. Do I have a mover for the recommendation that the council receive the report? I've got a mover and a seconder in mover, Councillor Grigor, and seconder, Councillor Hewitt. Are there questions for the CEO? Oh,
You go first.
Councillor
I'll ask
Grigor.
just, regarding the draft active transport strategy, in the report, there's several photos of people in the report. Do we have the consent forms for these people?
I would have to take that on notice, or if someone in the gallery, yes, I'm getting a nod. Yes, we have consent for use of the photos. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks.
Councillor Grout, did you have a question?
No, thank you, answered what I was going to ask.
Okay. Councillor Hewitt, or does anyone else wish to speak to the recommendation? I'd just like to note against the Audit and Risk Committee, there's reference to the biannual activity report, but what I'd also like to acknowledge is, and it's captured in the minutes that are presented as an appendix to the agenda, is that council's preference, and it was discussed at length in the last meeting, is to put all 4 independent positions on the Audit and Risk Committee to public advertisement in a staged way that will work towards the conclusion of those terms in August 2023. So this decision recognises that no position has been publicly advertised since the introduction of the Local Government Act 2020, which brought in a new function for audit committees, and that is the significant one of risk. So that's why they are now audit and risk committees. And in pursuit of best practice governance, council saw an opportunity to have all applicants, either existing members who wish to reapply or new members from our community who might have an interest, some skill and passion in audit and risk, that they apply with full comprehension of the new risk requirement, which we acknowledge is a significant one. So council will also undertake a remuneration review for members of the Audit and Risk Committee to ensure they're being adequately compensated for their time and expertise. And once this review has been completed, we'll commence an expression of interest process for the new members. With that said, I'll put this recommendation, or put the motion to the vote. So all in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 12, health and wellbeing. 12.1, gender equality statement of commitment. So the purpose of this report is to propose the gender equality statement of commitment be adopted by council, and the recommendation is that council adopt the gender equality statement of commitment. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hewitt. I'm happy to second the motion. Councillor Hewitt, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Tolhurst. The gender equality statement of commitment follows the discussion that we all had, I think maybe unanimously supported the preparation of back in 2021. And it just reaffirms our commitment to gender equality as required by the Act, and also the requirements of local governments. So it really just reinstates what we're legislatively obliged to do, but also our commitment to ensure that where we work and the extent to which we're within our community, that we do support those principles and seek to enhance them. I think it's, you know, quite a clear statement and it's quite to the point and it details our activities and I think it will be a document that we continually revise as we update the actions that we're going to take in support of the principles. So I support it and thank you to us for preparing it. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. As the seconder of the motion, I also wish to speak in support of it. We've talked about the many discussions council has had on this statement of commitment and how it's undergone several edits to strengthen it, to highlight that gender equality is everybody's business and that there's a role for council as an organisation, councillors as elected officials, but also members of our community. And I think the statement is really about wanting to position the borough as a welcoming place for all. So I'm really comfortable with where this has landed and note that a lot of the key principles and policies are drawn from the Gender Equality Act that provides counsel on that or advice on that to the state at large. So I'll speak in support of it, but I will now invite others to speak to the motion or against the motion, I should say. No?
I'd like to speak to the motion. Thank you, Mayor. The vision states that the Borough of Queenscliff is a community of where all people, regardless of their gender identity, can participate in the fully and all aspects of their lives without disadvantage, discrimination or prejudice. However, regarding our guiding principles in the paper, it all refers to just gender equality. Can we please explain that further? And if the regarding the question, and we can, since the officer's not here, if we could get the CEO to answer this, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, I'm actually happy to pass that back to the councillors because it's a councillor statement. It's not an officer statement.
Yeah, they drew it. Also, then can we actually, under the officer's help, can we actually have some examples of the gender equality that has been experienced in the borough?
Sorry, Councillor Gregoire, you might have to either rephrase or repeat that question. I'm not quite sure.
So can you give some examples to us of where there's been some gender inequality that's been sort of exampled in our borough? Any examples that's occurred? So you're saying that there's disadvantage of women in the statement. So the council recognises women, girls, non-binary and gender diverse people face unacceptable levels of systematic inequality. Can you please give us some examples?
Well, I think that the term systematic is really important in that statement, but certainly within the workplace itself and within the council, we've done some work on our wage gap, and the analysis we've done indicates there is some inequality when it comes to wages for our staff, and that's something we're trying to address. So that'd be the example closest to home for me. Certainly, we did a People Matters survey with the staff in 22, and certainly some of the responses in that survey, which is anonymous, but indicated that there were female staff members who felt that they weren't given the opportunities that male staff members were given, and also felt that in certain situations, the language that was used in documents and in meetings indicated some evidence of systematic gender inequality. So they're the only ones close to me, and they're things that we recognise that we need to improve within the organisation. But I'm not sure from the community perspective. Sorry, Councillor Gregoire.
So maybe can you define what a woman is?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't think it's appropriate to respond to that question.
So no, so they're saying, have we advertised? So have we been systematically discriminating against our female staff doing a similar job to a male? So we've purposely paid male staff more than the female staff doing the same job.
No, we haven't, councillor Grigau, but there is some legacy issues that are part of all government systems around remuneration and recognition of skills and qualifications that we need to think about.
Councillor Hewitt, as the mover of the motion, do you wish to have a right of reply?
I understand, councillor Gregar's looking for local data on it, and I understand that the CEO has provided some examples of the issues that, like many organisations, we may face internally, and so I think that that there is still a need for this statement.
Okay, with that, I'll bring the debate to a close and I'll put this recommendation that council adopt the current gender equality statement of commitment to the vote. So all in favour? And all opposed? Councillor Grigau. And I should have read out the names of those in favour were Councillor Grout, Tolhurst and Hewitt. No, sorry, I wasn't sure if you had your head down and I sort of probably didn't follow the best process, Jackie, so my apologies. But the motion is carried with a vote of 3.
And just to clarify, Mayor, we just voted on adopting a statement, a gender equality statement of commitment. So that was our commitment to address prejudice and discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grout. That brings us to item 13, 11. Wow. Item 13 is environment and there are no reports to consider. Item 14 is local economy and there are also no reports to consider. Item 15 is heritage planning and infrastructure and 15.1 is planning permit activity report. And I welcome Tim, our manager for planning and infrastructure, to speak to the report. Oh, and sorry, Councillor Hewitt is excusing herself due to a declared conflict of interest.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. I'll take the report as read. So the following report provides a summary of the planning permit activity report from the last report as at the close of business, 17 April 2023. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tim. So the recommendation is that the planning permit activity report be received. Do I have a mover for the report?
I'll not move that.
Thank you, Councillor Grout. Councillor Grigau is happy to second that. And any questions for Tim? Councillor Grout?
Yeah, I don't have any questions of you, Manager Tim, but I do want to make the following notes or note the report here that we're considering. I think it has 3 quite important elements in it, so I'll just draw your attention to those. The first is the application at 6 McDonald Road, which was an application for helicopter landing and takeoff. And I'll just point out that the process at the moment, we wait for a peer review of the ecology reports related to that application. The second note I wanted to draw your attention to was the councils will be receiving a briefing on 64 Kirk Road, Point Lonsdale, due to the 4 or more objections, which is part of our protocol. So we will get a briefing on that without having to request one. The third note that I wanted to make in this report is that the applicant for 5 Beach Street, Queenscliff, which is in Fisherman's Flat, is taking the council a permit refusal to VCAT.
Thank you, Councillor Grout. Did you need to respond to any of that, Tim? No, just the confirmations of processes underway. Thank you, Councillor Grout. Councillor Grigau, any questions from you?
No, thank you.
No, so we have the recommendation before us. I will now put it to the vote if there's no further comments. All in favour of receiving the report? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 16, I will bring back Councillor Hewitt. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, councillor Hewitt. So item 16, governance and finance, 16.1, third quarter implementation report for the annual plan 2022 to 23. Do we have an officer presenting to this?
Through you, Mayor, I'm happy to take that on. This comes in quick succession from the second quarter implementation report. And what we've done in the report itself is to include the second quarter and third quarter activity and provide what we hope is an improved explanation of where we are. We do note, as we've noted at the last meeting, that a number of items are in progress, a number of items have been paused, and that we're working with council to understand what we will achieve before the 30th of June this year. Otherwise, I'm happy to take questions on the report.
Thank you, Martin. Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I've just got a question in relation to.
Yeah. Sorry, councillor Hewitt, happy to move the motion in the first instance. If there's no one comfortable moving the motion by way of the recommendation before us, I actually wish to move a motion to defer noting of this report to seek some clarification and corrections on several items within the report. So do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, councillor Hewitt. As the mover of the motion, I don't need to speak to it other than what's been captured in my motion, but councillor Hewitt, you now wish to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The question is just in relation to the status of a number of projects in the annual plan, and we've been doing work in relation to working out where they sit in relation, where the projects sit as opposed to the milestones that we've set for those particular projects. And we did some work with the former acting CEO, Kevin Stiller, and I understand that the officers have been doing work with you as the CEO. And it would be really good if we could provide an update to the community on the status of those projects as a whole, and, you know, revise the timelines just so we're all clear about what we're going to achieve when. And I was hoping we might be able to get an update about when we might be able to go out to community to provide that clarification of timing. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. So what I take from the question is there's not enough information in this document, and that you want more specific information, which we can provide you at May, noting that June 30th is the end of the financial year.
So it wasn't about the matters reported in here, it's for the purposes of the communications out to the broader community about where projects are up to. So recognising that not everyone looks at our agenda and the attendances to our agenda, and it's how can we more broadly explain where we're up to with some of that project, and when we might be in a position to be able to do that, as we've discussed previously.
Yeah, so thank you. So thanks for clarification. As you probably appreciate, there's been a fair bit on in my first week and a half back in the office. So it hasn't really come up the priority list at this point in time. But certainly McKenna and I will sit down and go through that. We have some questions for council about the intent of that. So we'll come back and ask you some questions about that particular issue. Yeah, sorry, that's all I can offer at this point in time.
Thank you, Martin. Are there other questions, or do people wish to speak? No. Okay, with that, I'll put the deferral of the noting to the vote. So all in favour? Carried unanimously. Let's take that up. Thank you, Martin. Item 16.2, 2022-23 quarterly financial report as at 31 March 2023. I think we'll welcome our Manager for Finance and Corporate Services, Gihan, to present this report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll take the report as having been read, and I would like to add one comment. If you take the quarter 3 report, we have done a reforecast of our depreciation expenses. So that's the only change that we have made to the Q3 report compared to the Q2 report. As a result of reforecasting of depreciation expenses, so we have seen an improvement in our underlying results. And it is mainly because of there's a reduction in depreciation expenses of our existing building assets, because we got our existing building assets revalued by a professional independent valuer. So based on that report, we see a reduction in our depreciation expenses. Thank you.
Thank you, Gihan. So we have a recommendation before us to note the quarterly finance report for 31 March 2023. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Grout to second the motion. Councillor Hewitt, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Paul clearly set out and then Dennis, thanks for the summary.
Councillor Grout?
No, I'll just reiterate the same and thank you very much for providing this report and explaining to me at least. So I feel like I have a slightly better understanding of council finances after that discussion about the report.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. The big item, well, there's been lots of big items today, but that brings us to 16.3, which is the proposed financial budget for 2023-24 and the updated financial plan for 2023-24 to 2032-33. So we're in your hands again, Gihan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, as you correctly mentioned, it's one of the very important agenda item. But again, I'll consider the report as having been read, but would like to add few comments. Because one thing we are going to do, we will be having a public meeting on 10th May at 6 o'clock at very much the same location, where we will go through our draft budget in details and followed by a Q&A session. So anyone can ask any question about the draft budget. So keeping that in mind, I'll take this opportunity to add with comment, thinking that might even help the community to really come prepared with some of the questions that they may have in relation to the budget. If you look at the draft budget and the draft financial plan, that reflects the responses that we have received for the pre-budget community survey that we conducted in November, December. And some of the matters raised by some of the community organizations in various discussions, forums, and meetings. And again, we have been having a couple of workshops with councillors to date. So we have incorporated that feedback. And more importantly, this budget relates to other plans, other strategic documents that we already have in place. So the draft budget is a result of input that we have taken from all of those sources. So what we see is a balanced budget on the cash basis and with zero debt. So we don't have any loans on our balance sheet. Despite high inflationary pressures, the draft budget does not draw out any money from our general reserve. The Reserve Bank of Australia, we all know, the RBA predicts the inflation for 23-24 to be around 5%, even it may be a bit over 5%. Though we have average inflation closer to 5%, the budget includes a rate increase of 3.5% in line with the state government rate capping environment. The budget predicts as a percentage 4.8%, or as a value 513,000 increase in our operating income ongoing basis. And on the same basis, the recurrent expenses will go up by 5.6% as a figure 529,000, mainly because of the increase in employee cost. In the proposed budget, there are some allocation of additional staff resources to support some of the key initiatives, programs of the council to provide a new or additional services. And you can find all the details about those proposed changes in our draft budget report. In terms of the waste management charges, to ensure the financial sustainability of our waste management operation, Council will try to recover direct employee cost of the waste management operation via waste management charges from 23-24 onward. So as a result, projected increase in the waste management charges, say for a residential property, would be around $29.24 as a percentage. It would be around 7.3% increase. So if you haven't, so again, we will recover that direct staff cost on a stage basis. So without facing the recovery of the direct employee cost, the waste management charges for a residential property should have increased by $50.77 or as a percentage by 13%. Sorry, I will touch a bit of technical word, underlying results, but obviously we will discuss those things in detail in that public meeting. So in simple terms, the underlying results try to see whether we will have ongoing income to manage our operation as well as our asset renewal demand. So that's one of the very important indicator we use to assess the financial sustainability of our draft budget and our financial plan. So budget project 56,000 underlying deficit. We know we won't be able to really make underlying surplus, so we have been discussing that. So it's a 56,000 underlying deficit that the budget projects. But again, it's more important when you look at the underlying results over a medium to longer term period. So that's why we have this updated financial plan. So if you look at the updated financial plan, what you will see on average annual underlying deficit of around 97,000 for the next 10-year planning horizon. So if you compare with our previous financial plan, that recorded an underlying deficit of 204,000. So there's an improvement in our underlying result. And that is mainly because of three key decisions that we have incorporated into these draft documents from 23-24 onward. First one, the Better Boating Victoria, they have confirmed that we will get an ongoing grant support for the maintenance and upkeep of the upgraded boat ramp. And the other very important assumption we have incorporated into the draft document. So we have considered a notional interest income in our financial plan based on the assumption that the proceed from the sale of Murray Road land will be used for investment opportunities that will generate at minimum the interest income the council would have otherwise earned. So we have incorporated that into our draft financial plan and draft budget. And the other one is, as we discussed, the recovery of the direct employee cost through the waste management charges. So if you take those three decisions, those have contributed positively around in excess of 300,000 annually to our financial plan. Overall, the budget and the draft financial plan satisfy all financial sustainability indicators which we have identified in our council plan, except for the underlying result, but still it is a manageable deficit that we are looking at. So recommendation is, councillors, on page 51 and 52 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gihan, pardon me. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us. There are 6 points there. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move a motion that Council 1 accept for consultation the draft budget 2023 to 24, including the proposed schedule of fees and charges as presented at Appendix 5A, and include a reference to the ongoing financial contributions made to community organisations to be set out on page 28 of that budget document. 2, accept for consultation the draft financial plan 2023 to 24 to 2032 to 33 as presented at Appendix 5B. 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to give public notice of the draft budget 2023 to 24 and the draft financial plan by way of newspaper advertisements that Council has prepared the draft budget 2023 to 24 and the draft financial plan, and make copies available for inspection on Council's website or by request at info@queenscliff.vic.gov.au or by post. 4, seek written public submissions on the draft budget 2023 to 24 and the draft financial plan during the consultation period of Thursday, the 27th of April, 2023 to 4 p.m. on Thursday, the 25th of May, 2023. 5, receive submissions and, where requested, allow submitters to be heard by Council in support of those submissions at a Council Assembly on Wednesday, the 31st of May, 2023 at 6 p.m. 6, review all submissions made in relation to the draft budget and the draft financial plan in order to consider a motion to adopt the budget 2023 to 2024, including the schedule of fees and charges and the draft financial plan at a council meeting to be held on Wednesday, the 28th of June, 2023.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Grigor. Councillor Hewitt, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Gahan. Thank you, Jody, and thank you everyone else behind the scenes putting together the budget. We were talking about it as a council group and someone made the reference to having done a sterling job and I wholeheartedly agree. So thank you. We had a number of workshops and we did work through these elements. This is a document that a lot of work's gone into, but it's also sort of a starting piece for consultation. And, you know, we're talking about receiving submissions over nearly a month period. We're talking about inviting everyone who makes a submission to come and speak to us to further set out the issues they have with it or concerns about emissions that may be in there. And then once we have had opportunity to consider those, adopt the documents accordingly and make those necessary revisions, only then we'll be in a position to actually consider it for adoption. But before we've heard from the community, we're not going to be in that position. And so I really encourage everyone who's interested to make a submission in relation to the budget, because we really want to hear from you, because we really want to get this right for the community as a whole. I did just have a question, Mayor, for Gahan. Gahan, we've had a lot of questions lately about proceeds of the Murray Road land sale. And can you just repeat the statement about the assumption that's been made in the documents? Because I think it's really important about the commitment that we're making to that money, and that the principle being, I'm sure you'll explain it better than me, but the principle of that will really, you know, ensure that we put that money to best use. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think it's a very, thank you very much for that question, Councillor Hewitt. So that's a very critical assumption that we have used when we were developing our draft budget as well as the financial plan. I think more than those two documents, I think that's provide a really good benchmark for council when council is going to evaluate any potential project, because if you don't want to take any risks, at least we can keep that money in a term deposit and earn that interest income. So that is the bare minimum that we would expect from that sales proceed as a return. So that's what we have used in our draft budget and draft financial plan, that bare minimum benchmark.
Yeah, so we can't use the money unless it's going to earn, that the money is going to be used to earn more money than it would otherwise in a term deposit. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Councillor Grigor, do you wish to speak to the
So
motion?
I'd like to say, yes, I would. And Gahan and his team, I'd like to commend you on your job of producing the budget papers on top of your work on the installation of the ICT program. It would be very hard. You're sort of amazing that you can actually juggle the two and deliver this on time. It's fantastic. But every 4 years in November, you know, the public, the ratepayers and the community vote 5 people in to manage the finances of their rates and to build, you know, a strong community. And there's a level of trust that's been given to 5 people. And it's our job to actually make sure that we deliver the community's needs. You know, and the main job is asset maintenance and asset renewal, as well as the 3 Rs. I think it's over to the public now to go and review the papers, the budget papers, and actually have your voice and say how you want your rates spent. It's very important. And the feedback has to come back to us to make sure that we deliver for you. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Grigor. Councillor Grubb, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will. I'll just add to what Councillor Grigor has just said. I think this is very important. We're underlining much more clearly, I think, than we did with our active transport. This is a draft. This is a draft budget. We want to hear what you guys think of it. There are some important elements in it for me. And I thank Gahan for explaining again, or working with us through this budget building process. But what's been really important to me is that we continue zero debt in this municipality. And I think our near neighbours are really struggling with a mountain of debt. So I think that's a really important attribute of this draft budget. And another I'm going to just highlight was I was very conscious that we needed to have this manageable adjusted underlying results going forward. So the items that are in this draft budget are designed to achieve that. And certainly a number of items that we would like to have funded have actually been pushed out of this particular budget. So thank you for your attempt to turn us into financially literate people. And I'm going to be happily supporting this draft budget for consultation.
Thank you, councillor Grout. I also would like to speak in support of the draft budget and again, thank Gihan for his work and Jodie's work and other staff members. I think we've had 9 workshops, maybe more.
We have 7, so we will have. few more.
7. 7's a pretty good number. 7 workshops where we spent many, many hours thinking about what the community would like, referring to the budget survey that happened last year, referring to our council plan, looking at our community vision to see how we can deliver for the community in this draft budget. Gihan has also added new analysis and new breakdowns of numbers and the budget elements. So for those who are interested, and well, really for the whole community, but particularly where questions have been asked or people have requested to see the numbers broken down in a particular way, Gihan has delivered on that to make sure people have what they need from this document and can understand it in detail. As Gihan mentioned, there will be a public, a kind of open house or an opportunity in person to go through the budget, and obviously an opportunity to make submissions as well. It is in draft, so it's been sort of the theme of tonight, please make a submission on all or any parts of the budget as you see fit, in the varied ways that council are open to receiving those submissions. There are a few things I'd like to talk to that are in the budget, the draft budget, and one has been the subject of a question earlier in the meeting, and that is around proposed funding for an executive officer. I'd like to explain that this was a recommendation that came from our acting CEO, Kelvin Spiller, who's worked extensively in local government, and who really saw that the establishment of a position like this could work to serve community. So it wasn't about just being a service to the organisation internally. It was about making sure people have a really available, knowledgeable, connected conduit to council that can work on special projects, that has technical experience, that is likely a tertiary qualification in business management. And while the position hasn't been drafted, nor has the position been approved as part of the budget, I think it's important to talk about the rationale for how it's made it into this draft version of the budget. So read it with that lens. And I'd also like to talk to an omission. So something that's not in the budget, but has been a source of considerable community interest, is the readaptive and community use of the P1 huts. So council considered for the draft budget a number of ways that an assessment of these special spaces for community use could be included in the budget, but at this stage have determined that a first step towards the consultation and towards an expression of interest process for use of those spaces would be best done through an existing program of works in which council establishes the future cost of asset management for these buildings. So before we can get in and start offering them to people, we need to understand how we're going to manage them, what those costs involved. So we're doing some groundwork first as a lead into future consultation about that site. With that, is there anyone else?
Yeah, one further question. So at a council level, what are we doing to address the cost of living? Because, with increasing the rates by 3.5%, even though we're getting savings of the waste management, why aren't we passing those savings on and not taking the full rate? And so we can actually help the ratepayers and the residents and those indirectly, even renters, to with a lower cost of living.
Is that question directed to
Yes.
me?
Yeah.
To me?
No, it's CEO.
I'll have to take that on notice, councillor Gregor. I think there's a lot in that question. But I do note that the rate cap is set by the Minister for Local Government, and the Essential Services Commission actually, which monitors and makes recommendations to the Minister, recommended a higher increase in the rate cap to reflect that both the organisations like council are struggling to meet community expectations because the cost of living is increasing. So at this point in time, where the proposed increase to the rate cap is 3.5% by the Minister, that's at least 2-3% below inflationary costs at the moment. So there is some benefit in the Minister making that decision for the community.
But we're not obliged as a council to take the full 3.5%.
No, we're not. And maybe that's something that emerges through the consultation, but it would mean a severe reduction in services to the community and potentially some redundancies too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
With the debate, I'll bring the debate to a close and then I'll put the motion to the vote as laid out by councillor Hewitt. So all in favour of adopting the draft budget? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Gihan. That brings us to item 17, authorisation of signing and sealing of documents, 17.1, section 173, agreement at 38 Hesse Street, Queenscliff. So the recommendation here is that council note the use of the common seal in relation to section 173 agreement at 38 Hesse Street for planning permit 2020/006. Councillor Grout, you happy to move that? Councillor Hewitt, happy to second that. All in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Item 18, questions without notice. 18.1, questions without notice status update. There are no, at the ordinary meeting of March, one question without notice was taken on notice and the response is provided in adjunct to 8.1 and no other questions without notice are outstanding. 18.2, questions without notice. Councillors, are there questions?
Yes. Yeah. With regard to the 2023 bulk solar panel program, which the Borough of Queenscliff promoted in conjunction with QCan, were councillors briefed on the program and made aware of the financial commissions to QCan and the council when Vortex customers signed up, specifically QCan receiving $100 cash and the council receiving free solar panels? And 2, is it appropriate and transparent for the council to endorse a program in which customer payments financially benefit a third party rather than those customers simply getting a lower price? And 3, how many of these commissions factored into the assessment process which resulted in the selection of Vortex as the preferred supplier? And if council is installing Vortex panels on council buildings, should this have been done in a separate open tender to ensure value for money?
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for your question, councillor Gregor. I assume it's to me. There's a lot in those questions and I think the best way to respond is to take it on notice and provide you a response.
But you were sitting in those meetings, Mr. CEO, so can you please clarify for us tonight?
Sorry, I missed that, councillor Gregor.
Sorry?
I missed that.
You were in those meetings, so could you give clarification or?
As the if the request is to take it on notice, the CEO can provide a response outside the meeting. Are there other questions for the Mayor or CEO from councillors?
Yes, another one, thank you. For the benefit of the Point Lonsdale residents here tonight, could the CEO please provide an update on the $1 million grant announced by the state government in May 2022 for an update works on the Lighthouse precinct? how will the council address the considerable delays in commencing the project?
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, councillor Gregor. So at this point in time, we have been working with the DECA, or the Department of Energy, Climate Change and other things, to nut out the details of that agreement, and we're very close to achieving that. Through that process, we've taken advice from representatives from the reference group that was involved, has been involved for a number of years in the work that is occurring on that site. In terms of the delays, we have until July 2024 to complete the work. So formally, there's no delay at this point in time, but we're certainly getting to the point where we need that agreement in place and we need to get on with the work, which we're hoping we can do very soon. Did you want any further? Okay.
Councillor Hewitt?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. CEO, just we've had discussed at length at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting about the recent cyber attacks that a lot of organisations. We're just talking about the recent cyber attacks that lots of organisations have faced, including recently Latitude. We've talked at the Audit and Risk Committee about what we're going to attempt to do in order to continue to strengthen our defences. Is the question, CEO, will the council be looking to put a cyber security policy in place to continue to strengthen our defences, or an alternatively an internal protocol to ensure that we have the best defences in place possible for our organisation, but also that we have the mechanisms in place to immediately respond as necessary to any potential cyber risk if and when they may occur. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hewitt. The Mayor has contacted me today to ask for a council briefing on that matter, and I think the most appropriate forum for that is the council briefing, because it's a complex issue. Councillors are aware that we're working with 3 other councils at the moment on a transformation project. Certainly cybersecurity is at the forefront of everyone's mind, and certainly the systems that we're putting in place through this transformation project will improve any management of potential risk.
Thank you. Look forward to the briefing. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Grout? All right. That concludes questions without notice. Item 19 is list of council meetings. So as Gihan noted and listed here is the budget presentation to the community happening on Wednesday, the 10th of May at 6 p.m. and that will be at Warringwarring or the Queenscliff Hub. And the next council meeting will occur on Wednesday, the 24th of May at 7 p.m. and that will be both here and live streamed on the council website. That brings us to item 20, which is close of meeting. The time is 9 p.m. and I conclude this meeting. Thank you very much to all who've joined us both online and in the gallery tonight.